All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Speak to the Beak. I am Tim the Ferds, joined again by Joe Wilson to talk some hockey playoffs. So, Joe, loaded question. How are you doing?
Not too well after last night's performance by the Islanders. Pretty bad, really bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And unfortunately, for us anyway, we're going to get into that. But before we do that, I'll give you a little preview of what's coming up on today's pod. All right, so few things. You were right. Vegas beat Colorado. I know we didn't pod last week, so we'll chit chat about that for like 2 minutes. Obviously, I want to dive into Vegas and Montreal over there, as well as the Islanders playing the Lightning. Um, we're getting really close to the end of both of these series, so we'll kind of give some maybe future predictions of what we think in the last handful of games, that we got coming up here. Um, and then if there's any off-season news, or I know obviously the Rangers hired a new coach, which we've been waiting on because obviously we're New York people over here, even though we don't like the Rangers. Noteworthy. And yeah, that's kind of what we got. So before
Nope.
we start today's pod over here, few things you always need to do. Follow at Beak Brands on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you're one of those people that hits me up and you're like, yo, I don't see it on Instagram, that's because Facebook and Twitter post automatically. Instagram, we need to physically do it ourselves, so it's not always out the second that something is released. So if you're one of those like people that needs immediate gratification, Twitter and Facebook might be better for you because exactly when something drops, it's right there for you. That's number one. Number two, if you're on YouTube here, subscribe to the channel, like it, share with a friend, interact with the bots who like to comment on the videos, whatever. Maybe a real person will be there one day besides you. That'll be cool. If you're an Apple, Spotify listener only, you're not a video person, definitely rate, review, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And most importantly, check out the website, beakbrands.com. The written stuff is up there. The podcast is up there. One of the more popular columns that I write every single week is the fantasy baseball waiver wire column. If you want to see that, you gotta go to the website. It costs you nothing. You just have to type in beakbrands.com. It's pretty easy, actually. I'm not gonna lie to you. And obviously, there's other content up there as well. So Joe's ready. I'm ready. We're gonna backtrack to start today's episode. I was all season long. I was on Colorado, and Joe was on Vegas. So I'll let Joe have this one. Vegas obviously beat the Avalanche in the series. Because obviously they're playing Montreal right now. So when you watched in like 30 seconds or less, when you watched the Vegas and Avalanche series, was there anything that stood out to you, or was kind of just like it was just two really good teams going at it, and someone had to win?
I think the lack of depth of Colorado and the fact that Vegas defensemen are really jumping up into the play this postseason and really contributing to help their offense. And they also did a great job of shutting down their top three.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that. I don't know about the depth thing, lack of depth thing for Colorado, but one thing I didn't really take into account when you watch the games, you can tell that Colorado like hasn't been there before. Like every time there was like crucial situational hockey, Vegas killed them in every single like crucial moment of the series. And I think that's eventually what did Colorado in because they blew a couple of leads. They were up in a handful of
Yes, they did.
games, and sad because that was my pick, but sad for me and my pride. But I think obviously they'll be good again next year. They have a solid team. Obviously, so will Vegas. They're still in it right now. I just wanted to touch on that because obviously me and Joe had a full season long. We were gonna meet eventually. His pick came out on top, so what a shame for me. So that's good for him.
Wonder.
Let's move on to what we got currently going right now. Let's stick with Vegas because we just talked about him. We'll continue to talk about him. Vegas is playing the Montreal Carey Prices. Series is currently tied. They play again tonight as of this recording. By the time you hear this, the game will be over already. So, is there anything in particular that, one, you've seen so far in the series that's really stood out besides for Carey Price? And two, is there anything you're looking for tonight that when these people listen in the morning tomorrow, which is Wednesday, they go, wow, that Joe Wilson guy really hit this one on the head?
Oh boy, it's a lot of pressure to put on there. But one thing that I'm realizing about this series, and one thing that I'm also looking forward to see in this game tonight is the lack of scoring from the top six, like Stone, Pacioretty, Marchessault, Carlson. Like most of the goals have been scored by the defense in this series. Alex Pietrangelo, to be specific, he's been going pretty crazy. And I think the reason Montreal is keeping it so close is because those guys have disappeared, and Carey Price has been able to stand on his head and carry the Canadiens to 2 wins, since the top six can't get anything past them. So tonight, I think one of those 4 guys like scores, or like you really see them stepped up in their increased scoring chances when they're on the ice.
One thing that's been like of note is Montreal has their top 4 defensemen back and healthy. And they've done a really good job, like as you said, on Vegas's top guys there. But when you look at Vegas, right, they had Marc-Andre Fleury got jinxed by the announcer the other night when he was like, oh, his puck handling's been so crucial in this series, blah, blah, blah. Then like a minute later, he like muffed one and it went in. And then they went to Robin Lehner the next game. So if you had to ride with a goalie for Vegas, are you going to go back to Fleury? Are you going to stick with Lehner? What are you doing?
I'd go back to Fleury personally, just because he's the person who got them there. Lehner didn't play for like 21 days or whatever. Got beat pretty bad in game 1 of the playoffs, and then he stood on his head the other night. Played really well. They got the win, but I think Fleury would be the right decision for tonight, just based on the fact that he's gotten them to this point, and I feel like he just needed a break after making a mental error or physical error, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it was some type of error, that's for sure. I would also go back to Fleury. They actually showed that crazy stat the other night that I saw, that he's like number 2 all time in playoff wins since it was like 1970 something or whatever. Like, that's crazy that this guy is like that high up. He was like 2 or 3 on the list. And I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right? I mean, all those years in Pittsburgh, they were always good. He goes to Vegas, they're good. So he's played in a lot of playoff games. So for me personally, like Joe said, I'm a dance with the girl who brought you kind of gay. So that's who we're going with. All right? Fleury's the answer, even though Leonard did play well the other night. The series is currently tied as of this recording, right? Who are you going to pick tonight, and why?
I'm going to pick Vegas. Back in Vegas, Game 5. Good atmosphere. Hopefully, as I said, the top 6 shows up. Defense really solidifies themselves and plays well in front of Fleury, and hopefully they can get some past Price.
If Montreal somehow wins this game, do you think Vegas has a chance to beat them 2 consecutive times the way Price is playing?
You never know, Tim. That's a tough question, just because, Vegas been my team all postseason over there in the western area, besides the Islanders. So I'll say yeah. If they lose. I think they could.
They could.
I think they need to be able to do it. Like, instead of, like, I feel like to go into the Islanders series, like, I don't know about all that.
All right, so I'm assuming you're going to pick Vegas to keep going here, but I just want to show some Carey Price love. He's got a .930 save percentage right now, which is higher than his season total, higher than his career average, higher than his playoff career average. The guy's been incredible this postseason. And like me and Joe have said, every round we're kind of like, yeah, whatever, Montreal, they're kind of here. They'll lose. And the next thing you know, they're in it. They're still in it. And I think one thing that's really paid off for them is they have a veteran line, right? Especially once they added Stahl at the trade deadline. We were kind of just like, Montreal will get in, they'll get killed, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that line in particular, with Stahl on it, has been really important for them. Because, like, the rest of their team, I feel like they're not like these household name players if you're not like a die-hard Canadiens fan. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Right, for most of them anyway.
Yeah, I'd say so. Most of them. I'd say that, yeah, like their defense has stepped up. Getting Petrie back has really helped them in this series, even though you see that picture online where like his eyes are like all red.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. That's been
Scary coming across that. Yes.
yeah, no thanks.
That freaked me a little
All those people are scary. Every NHL player is very scary. Even the small guys. Like, no, I don't want any part of it.
bit. Nathan Gerby's like 5'5".
Yeah. And he'd still probably kill both of us.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
He wouldn't scare me. I'd just do it.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Last thing on Vegas and Montreal here. What do you think would have a higher probability of happening? The Canadiens beating Vegas 2 straight times, or Vegas beating the Canadiens 2 straight times, assuming Carey Price is still playing the way he's playing?
I'd say Vegas beating Montreal 2 straight times. I really hope Montreal doesn't beat Vegas 2 straight times now. After I said that, that'd be really bad. But just because I think that they're just a deeper, more put together team, and I think Pete DeBoer behind the bench is really doing a stand up job. Even though people and Vegas fans would have been calling for his head if Leonard lost that game.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you. Like, I'm just going to pick the talent, and I just think Vegas is better.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in simple terms. Like, eventually, magic is going to run out for the Canadiens over there. So let's shift over to the Islanders series. Being an Islander fan, it's hard because I would like them to win, but I picked Tampa to go to the Stanley Cup, so I want to be right. But my fandom is getting in the way, and I'd rather the Islanders advance than me be right, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The series has been back and forth. I think Game 1, the Islanders really took it to Tampa, and yeah, the way they have played them for like 45 minutes, and then Tampa woke up.
Well,
but
I don't know if it was outplayed. I just feel like, well, like, yeah, it is outplayed, but I just think Tampa just didn't play like well at all.
yeah,
Like
Tampa
they were
didn't
like
show up. Yeah.
tired, like rusty, and like once, like I knew that wasn't what we were gonna get all series at all.
Yeah, and after Game 1, a lot of like the casual Islander fans were like, "Yeah, we got this." I'm like, "All you did was piss them off."
You're an idiot.
Yeah.
We're losing next game. That's a must-win for them, and then like we'll probably lose Game 3 if we haven't won one all series, and that's what happened.
Yeah. So it's currently not looking too great for the Islanders, especially after last night's 8-0.
Last night was atrocious. Most embarrassing hockey game I've seen played. Eastern Conference Finals, and like tie it 2-2. You have all the momentum after that crazy iconic save, and then 8-0. I knew once it was 3-0, and then they opened up the second. They hit the post like 3 times in a row, not being able to score. I was like, yeah, it's over. It's a wraps. Turned it off after the second period. I was like, all right.
Your frustration turned it off.
Definitely. Yeah, I watched the Padres-Dodger game instead.
Good idea. At me and Keith on the Speak to the Beak Baseball podcast. That's right. That's what you like to see right there.
Yeah, I threw somebody on the Padres, and it was good. Good night. Good way to end a miserable first game, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so they're back at it again tomorrow and or today, depending on when you're listening to this. Do you think the Islanders are going to rebound from that? Because 8-0, like it wasn't even like it was. They just got thumped from the beginning. It was ugly.
Yeah, it was real bad. It was real bad. And I think they do because it's the Coliseum. Last game there, Barry Trotz is the coach. Like I just feel like the way they're put together, they have to. I think it's going to be like a real tough win. I think like maybe an overtime win, maybe 1-goal win, just like scratch it out. Maybe they go crazy and do the same thing to them. Like that's ever possible. Probably not. But realistically, I think we lose in 7 back in Tampa. But like as a fan, again, like, yeah, you want them to win. You're really hoping that it wins. Like, you almost want to say that it's going to happen, but, like, after last night, yeah, no shot. We win the series. Hopefully we win game 6, though. That'd be fun.
Yeah, so I can't. We actually agreed on this. I thought you were going to be the opposite way, being that you're like a lot more irrational about the Islanders than I am. Um, which yeah, it's fine.
Lost 8.
It's fine. It's fine. I think the Islanders empty the tank to win Game 6. Like potential last game at the Coliseum. Like they're just not going to let them lose, and then they go back in Game 7 and get absolutely curb stomped because they just got nothing left after that.
That wouldn't be the coolest either. I just feel like so you're gonna give all the fans hope, be like, oh, they did it, they like forced a game 7, like we knew they couldn't lose here. Like that's what every fan's thinking. Like hopefully they win. Like everyone wants them to win, obviously, but like hope they don't get curb stomped game 7. Like hopefully it's a close game at least. Like
yeah. So I'm glad you brought up close games because we've been kind of I've been on one side of the fence, you've been on the other. I just don't think, like, and I said it before this series too on this podcast, I just don't think the Islanders have any, like, good individual players that are, like, amazing on their own. Like, the system can only get you so far. Like, eventually you just need a guy that you just can give him the puck and he's going to make everyone look stupid. We don't have too many of those.
Yeah. Well, like, now you really realize it because they're playing Tampa. They have, like, 5 all-stars on their team. Like, Point could do it, Kucherov could do it, Stamkos could do it. Like even like some of the like not even that like Palat could do it, Killorn could even do it, and then like Hedman could do it. Like so yeah, they all can. And like the only one that could do it for us is Barzal. He's getting triple teamed and like dumped on his ass like every time he goes into the zone. So obviously it's tough, but like you can't just rely on that to win. So like there's obviously ways to stop them. Like they did it in game 1. Like I'm pretty sure those 3 players had like 2 combined shots. Like it looked great, the Islanders in game 1, but like gotta have to replicate that, contain them, and then capitalize on your chances because we've hit the post like 6 times in the last 2 games. It's kind of unreal.
But that's exactly my point, right? The Islanders need to play a perfect game just to have a chance to beat the other team. You're saying Tampa can just show up and beat the Islanders, like especially if they played the way they played game 2 and last night.
Yeah, I think it based off a lot off Kucherov and Point. Like obviously Point's been absurd this series, like goals in every single game. What is it, like 8 straight now?
8
like
straight.
Absurd. But like I think once like if Kucherov's like off, like in game 1 we won, he was like lackadaisy, like missing passes and stuff. I think like like Tampa Bay really like feeds off their top 3 players. So like if they're having like an off day, then like Tampa's like an easier team to beat. But like if they're all performing at their best, then yeah, we're gonna get stomped out every game. Yeah. Like and they're gonna stomp every team in the league out every game because they're that good.
They're that good. So some quick stats for you. I'm glad you brought up the Matt Barzal thing. He actually is in this series against Tampa, the second, he has played the second fewest shifts out of everyone on the Islanders. The only person below him is Matt Martin. Do you think that's by design, or he has the highest shot percentage, 33%, but he has the second lowest amount of shifts out of anyone on the team? Do you think there's a reason for that?
I just think it's because he's on a line with Leo Komarov. Like, obviously, when he's on the ice, he's going to be able to get the puck into their zone and, like, generate, like, some form of shots, but, like, maybe not high-scoring chances, but just basic shots in general. And if you look at, like, the past 2 rounds in the playoffs, like, the third line, Palmieri, Pajot, they've been going crazy. Nelson, Bouvillier, Bailey, they've all been playing absurdly well. So, honestly, like I don't blame Trotz for playing those 2 lines significantly more than Leo Komarov. So, like, I think, in my opinion, Palmieri should be playing more with Barzal because when Trotz has played them together, they have scored close to almost every time they've been on the ice. Like, it's like 4 times and like 10 times or something. It's nuts. 40% or something. Pretty high.
And when you look at this series, like, this just goes even further to my point about just Tampa having, like, just more players that are good. Every single player on the Islanders is a negative player except for Kyle Palmieri and Matt Barzal. Clutterbuck -1, Bailey -1, Martin -1, Nelson -2, Pellick -2, Pollock -3. And now, yes, those are going to be skewed because of the 8-0 last night. But even going into that game, because I checked it before the game for today's podcast, there was only 3 other guys that were at an even 0. So it only really dropped. Guys that were negative just became more negative. Like, no one really got bounced too bad.
Yeah, makes sense.
And when you look at, if you just look at Tampa's points, like, Kucherov's got 9 points, Points got 6, Hedman has 5, Killorn has 4, Stamkos has 4, Palat has 3. When you look at the Islanders, their leading point getter only has 3 points, and that's Barzal. It's like they just have, like, if you had to rank the players in this series, where would you put Matt Barzal?
Ooh, I put him in the top 6. I put him top 5. Well, like all position or like all positions,
just skaters
all
and defensemen.
Yeah. Put him like, I'd put him like 5th, 6th, or 7th around there, just because he's like scored in game 1 and like huge.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like
he performed well the first 2 games of the series, invisible the last 2, so it's whatever.
So the Islanders' best player is not even better than Tampa's whatever. Let's say 3 or 4 best guys.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to beat a team like that.
No, yeah, like everyone knows that. Like, that's why if we won, it'd be so crazy, and then that's why I think we'd be able to win the cup if we beat Tampa, because like they're the best team in the league. Like Vegas, like matches up closest to them just because they have Pacioretty and Stone, like 2 really all-star caliber players. But even then, still, they even with Pietrangelo, they still have Hedman, Point, like Kucherov, Stamkos,
they just have so many guys.
Gord, Cirelli, all players that like can play second, third, like first line roles. Like it's absurd.
Yeah, they're a really good team. So where me and Joe stand, I think we're on the same page here. It's looking like Vegas, Tampa are going to square off, and it actually works out for our podcast here because I was heavy on Tampa. I picked them to win the whole thing. And you were heavy on Vegas, and I'm pretty sure you picked them to win the whole thing. So, if they meet up, we're back at it one more time.
I think you'll get the last laugh then. I'm not too confident on that one, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, we have time, so let's see what happens with that.
Yeah,
but last thing before we wrap up the podcast, the Rangers hired a new coach. So, you could fill the people in for us. What do you think... Because I know you were like, if the Rangers get the right coach, they could be really good. Do you think they have the right coach?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think Gerard Gallant's been really successful. Like, he was the coach when the Islanders played the Panthers. Even though we bounced the Panthers, like, they still played a solid series. He was the first coach of Vegas when he brought him to the Cup. Like, so yeah, he has really solid experience, really knows how to get a team to the postseason, and with a young team like the Rangers, it's going to be scary next season if they're going to be good, for sure.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that in there for our Ranger fans, because obviously, like we said, we got you covered. So as me and Joe here progress with the NHL offseason, we're going to have the draft, we're going to have free agency, there might be some trades. So here's kind of the timeline, if you're an avid hockey listener. We're going to keep rolling until Stanley Cup is over. We'll be back either next week or right before the Stanley Cup starts. And then as things develop over the offseason, obviously we're going to take a little bit of a break because there's dead time in every sport where just nothing's happening. And then we will reconvene once things start to heat up. So we only have a couple more shows left, Joe, in our first season doing the hockey thing. I think it's been pretty successful so far. But what would make it more successful is if people did the normal 3 things I tell them to do, which is number 1, go to the website beakbrands.com. Number 2, follow at beakbrands on social media. Joe really likes when I transition nicely into that. At beakbrands on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You can follow me and Joe on Instagram if you want to chit chat. I'm at Tim Ferdinand. He's at Joe Wilson 24 with 2 E's on the Joe, I think, something like that. You think I'd have that memorized by now? Yeah, good. And then if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, to the page. Share the video if you're an Apple, Spotify guy or girl. But according to our demographics, all guys. So if you're a Spotify or Apple guy or girl, rate and review, follow the podcast, share it with a friend, maybe share it with your girlfriend so we can get some chicks out here that like hockey. I don't know. Maybe the demographics will pick up on that. All right? So help a guy out. I know Joe is having a blast over there. We'll be back sometime before the Stanley Cup begins. And until then, me and Joe are done for the day. So we're out of here.